Zyra stepped off the transport shuttle onto the busy platform of Aurora Prime, her heart heavy with uncertainty. The planet stretched endlessly before her, a dazzling city of shining towers, metallic spires, and flying vehicles that darted between buildings like swarming insects. She adjusted the folds of her robe, feeling the curious stares of humans and aliens alike. Her species, the Cerealians, were known across distant star systems for their beauty, intelligence, and wisdom. But here, among the dense crowds of a new world, she felt small and fragile. She had hoped for sanctuary, for some hint of welcome, but already the atmosphere seemed cold, unyielding, as if the city itself discouraged strangers. Everywhere she looked, she saw beings bustling about their business, talking, haggling, and ignoring her. Her long, silver hair shimmered in the sunlight, drawing glances she did not want. People paused, whispered, or stared openly. Some humans smiled politely but quickly returned to their routines, while others avoided her gaze entirely. Aliens with sharp horns, multiple eyes, or metallic limbs regarded her with suspicion. Zyra had faced prejudice before, but the weight of repeated rejection made her chest ache. Her first stop had been the city council building, an enormous structure of glass and metal. She had walked through its wide doors, head held high, and requested an audience with the council's representative for alien relations. The official who met her was a tall human in a sharp uniform, his expression polite but detached. "I am Zyra of Cerealia," she had said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I seek asylum for myself. My people have been driven from our home world. I have knowledge, skills, and wisdom to share. I only ask for a place to live safely." She had tried to explain that she was not just a refugee. She could offer insights into advanced technology, diplomacy, and resource management. Yet every argument was met with bureaucratic indifference. Forms to fill, offices to visit, permits to apply for. She left with a polite smile, hiding the sting of being dismissed. Next, she had tried contacting merchants and trade guilds. Perhaps humans who ran businesses would see her value her intelligence, her knowledge of interstellar commerce. But every door closed. Some traders feared that harboring her could bring political complications. Others simply did not care. One shopkeeper laughed softly when she mentioned her background. "Sorry, lady, we only take humans here. Everything else, risky business." She felt invisible in a galaxy that once celebrated her kind. She walked past a park where children played, humans laughing in the sun. Zyra paused and watched them. There was something pure in their joy, something she had not felt for a long time. It was a small reminder that not all life was harsh, that kindness could exist even in crowded, indifferent cities. She let herself linger, inhaling the warm air scented with flowers and machinery. For a moment, she imagined what life could be like if someone extended a hand instead of turning away. The day moved on, and the city's lights began to shine as evening fell. Zyra found herself at a quiet corner of the spaceport, far from the bustling terminals and shops. She sat on a low wall, legs dangling, and closed her eyes. Memories of her home came flooding back, the green valleys, the crystalline lakes, the song of her people's voices at dusk. She had never imagined being forced to leave all of it behind to face a world that did not welcome her. Tears threatened, but she blinked them away. She had survived before. She would survive again. Suddenly, a voice interrupted her thoughts. "You look lost." "I am looking for a place to belong, a safe place. I have been rejected by many." But something in his calm, steady demeanor sparked a faint hope. She followed him through a maze of streets, up narrow stairways, and into a small ship docked at the edge of the platform. The vessel was unassuming but functional, a trader's craft filled with tools, supplies, and odd contraptions that hinted at Kane's resourcefulness. Inside, Kane offered her water and simple food. Zyra accepted, marveling at the normalcy of it. She had expected cold indifference, suspicion, or even hostility. Instead, she was met with courtesy and patience. "I don't have much," Kane said, his voice low and earnest, "but I can offer you safety, at least for now. No one will question you here, and no one will harm you while I am around." She told him about her journey, the war that destroyed her home, the countless doors slammed in her face, and the knowledge she carried. Kane listened, never interrupting, never judging. Hours passed in conversation. Zyra learned that Kane was not a politician, not a wealthy merchant, not a bureaucrat who made decisions from behind a desk. He was a traveler, a human who had seen countless worlds and helped many who had been overlooked or rejected. His reputation among humans was quiet but respected. He did not seek fame, only justice and fairness. As night deepened, the city outside shimmered with artificial lights, reflections dancing on the metallic towers. Zyra felt a sense of peace she had not felt in a long time. The rejection, the loneliness, and the fear that had plagued her since she left her home were not gone, but they felt less heavy. She realized that maybe, just maybe, humans had something to offer beyond fear and indifference. Still, the galaxy was dangerous. Zyra knew that being seen with a human like Cain could attract attention. Powerful factions, xenophobic groups, or opportunistic warlords might see her as a prize or a threat. But for the first time, she felt she had a companion who would not abandon her, someone whose ingenuity and courage could counter the perils they might face. She slept in a quiet corner of Cain's ship, the soft hum of the engines lulling her into uneasy rest. Her mind replayed the events of the day, the repeated rejections, the coldness of official policies, the indifference of those who should have helped. And yet, Cain's presence was a reminder that not all humans were blind to kindness and intelligence. Some, perhaps, could see the value in others, even when the world refused to. When Zyra awoke, dawn was breaking across Aurora Prime. The city was stirring again, people hurrying to work, children playing in the streets, ships preparing for new journeys. Cain was already up, tinkering with a small device, completely absorbed. He glanced at her, smiled faintly, and said, "We'll figure out the next step today, but first, breakfast." Today, she would explore a new side of humanity, one that could be brave, clever, and honorable. Today, she would learn that perhaps she was not truly alone in the galaxy. And for the first time since her journey began, she allowed herself to imagine a future where someone treated her not as a burden, not as a curiosity, but with respect, kindness, and dignity. A future where perhaps humans could be more than she had ever hoped, capable of honor and loyalty in ways other species had never understood. Zyra did not know what challenges awaited her, what dangers lurked in the shadows of Aurora Prime or across the stars. She only knew that she had found one human who saw her worth, who treated her like she belonged. And that knowledge, small though it was, gave her the strength to face whatever came next. As Cain handed her a steaming plate of food, she smiled faintly. It was a simple gesture, ordinary and human, but it felt like a promise that for the first time in weeks she had a place to start anew. Zyra ate the breakfast Cain had prepared, marveling at its simplicity. Warm bread, fresh fruit, and a thick, sweet drink that humans called tea. It was humble, but the care with which he had made it mattered more than taste. Cain watched her quietly, occasionally tinkering with small tools on the table, repairing devices that looked complicated but seemed ordinary to him. He had a habit of keeping busy with his hands, as if thinking through action rather than words, and Zyra found it strangely comforting. After they finished, Cain leaned back and looked at her. "You can't stay hidden here forever. The city isn't safe for someone like you. People talk, rumors spread, and someone with power will notice sooner or later. We need a plan." She had feared that the moment of quiet peace was temporary. She was not naive. The galaxy was harsh, and her kind, though respected in some circles, was also feared or envied. She spoke carefully. "I need to survive, but I also want to contribute. I do not want to be a burden. There is knowledge I can share. Science, diplomacy, strategies for trade and resource management." It was the first time she had spoken openly about her purpose in this city, without being dismissed or ignored. Cain's eyes held no skepticism, no judgment. He seemed to believe in her, and that belief, she realized, was more powerful than any weapon or alliance. They spent the rest of the morning preparing the small ship for travel. Cain explained that he could take her to remote locations, to settlements where humans welcomed outsiders or where she could share her knowledge safely. He was careful, methodical, showing her tools, explaining navigation routes, and checking the engines. Zyra observed everything, impressed by his skill. Humans might not have the technology of the Cerealians, but they had ingenuity and adaptability. Cain could make ordinary devices do extraordinary things, and that resourcefulness could be the difference between life and death. By midday, they left the city behind. The ship lifted smoothly from the docking bay, climbing above Aurora Prime's sprawling skyline. Zyra looked down at the city she had hoped would welcome her. Its towers glinted in the sun, but she no longer felt longing. Instead, she felt determination. With Cain's help, she would find a place where her presence mattered, where her voice could be heard, and where rejection did not define her existence. The journey was quiet at first. Zyra watched the stars, constellations that were familiar to her yet seemed different from this vantage point. Cain piloted the ship with precision, maneuvering around debris fields and small cargo freighters. Occasionally, he would glance at her and offer a brief comment about navigation, a subtle lesson in human ingenuity and observation. Zyra listened, absorbing every word. Humans might not have her species' long history of interstellar diplomacy, but they had intuition, courage, and cleverness that even the most advanced aliens often underestimated. As they traveled, Kane began to ask Zyra about her experiences. She told him of her home planet, Soralia, and the war that had destroyed it. Her words were calm, but her eyes reflected deep sorrow. Kane listened, never interrupting, never judging. He asked questions not to probe, but to understand. Zyra realized that humans had a way of making others feel heard, of acknowledging pain without minimizing it, a quality many species lacked. By the third day of travel, they reached the outskirts of a desert planet known as Korath, home to scattered human settlements. The planet was harsh, its surface dominated by rocky plains and fierce sandstorms, but Kane assured her it was safer than the city. The local humans were self-reliant, outsiders by necessity, and more open to unusual visitors. Kane knew them, had traded with them before, and trusted that they would welcome Zyra. As they descended, Zyra felt a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. She had faced rejection so many times that hope felt fragile. The small settlement appeared below them, a cluster of domed structures, solar collectors, and small gardens. People moved about, working, talking, and tending to animals and crops. Kane landed the ship smoothly near the center, and they disembarked. The humans looked up at Zyra with curiosity. Some whispered, some stared openly. Kane stepped forward confidently. "This is Zyra of Soralia. She comes in peace. I ask you to treat her with respect." It was a small lesson she would never forget. Humans could inspire loyalty and trust through courage, honor, and clarity of purpose. Over the next few days, Zyra settled into the settlement. Kane introduced her to the leaders and workers, explaining her background and skills. Zyra demonstrated her knowledge, showing efficient irrigation techniques for the harsh desert soil and suggesting methods to improve energy storage using alien principles adapted to local materials. The humans listened attentively, asked questions, and began to implement her suggestions. Zyra had never experienced such genuine curiosity and respect before, but not everything was simple. Word of her arrival spread beyond the settlement. Nearby factions, humans, aliens, and mercenaries, heard that a Soralian was being sheltered and saw opportunity or threat. Kane warned Zyra that danger could arrive at any time. He began training her in basic defense measures, not because he doubted her intelligence, but because survival often required practicality alongside knowledge. Zyra was hesitant at first, uncomfortable with violence, but she recognized its necessity. The desert sun was relentless, and Zyra often found herself exhausted by the physical labor humans engaged in daily. Kane, however, encouraged her gently, emphasizing that adapting to their ways did not mean abandoning her identity. She learned to repair small machines, manage resources, and navigate the rugged terrain. Humans had a rhythm and strength born of necessity, and Zyra began to respect it. She realized that intelligence alone was insufficient. Survival required creativity, endurance, and courage, the traits humans embodied effortlessly. One evening, as the twin moons of Korath rose over the horizon, Kane and Zyra walked outside the settlement. The desert stretched endlessly, but the stars above were vivid and clear. Zyra felt a calm she had not known since leaving Soralia. Kane glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "You know," he said, "most people would have turned away if they saw someone like you. Too strange, too different, too risky. But humans, we sometimes see value where others see only problems. Maybe that's why I could help you. And I like surprises, especially when they're worth protecting." The following day, Kane took her on her first real expedition outside the settlement. They needed supplies from a nearby trading post, a small collection of buildings run by humans and aliens who were cautious but fair. Kane taught Zyra to negotiate, to observe carefully, and to rely on both intellect and instinct. She discovered that humans could be cunning, clever, and persuasive in ways that even her advanced species often underestimated. At the trading post, Zyra encountered skepticism, of course. Some merchants whispered about her exotic origins, while others openly questioned why Kane would vouch for her. But Kane's reputation, combined with Zyra's composed demeanor, turned doubt into cautious respect. She was no longer just a stranger. She was someone who could provide insight, knowledge, and perspective, and the humans recognized it. By the end of the expedition, Zyra felt a growing confidence. She could survive, yes, but more importantly, she could contribute meaningfully. Kane had shown her that humans were capable of trust, courage, and honor, and she was beginning to see her place among them. That night back at the settlement, Zyra recorded her thoughts in her hollow diary. She wrote about rejection, about the harsh lessons of survival, but also about the rare human who had changed her perspective. Kane had not just saved her physically, he had opened a door to hope, a chance to be respected and valued. As she finished, Kane appeared at her doorway holding 2 cups of the same warm tea from their first morning. He handed her one. "For tomorrow," he said simply. "We have much to do and there's danger out there. But I think you're ready." For the first time since leaving Soralia, Zyra allowed herself to imagine a future. A future where humans were not just clever and strong, but honorable and brave. A future where she could share her knowledge, learn from others, and build something new. And most importantly, a future where she was treated with dignity, not fear or disdain. As the moons rose higher, casting silver light across the desert, Zyra and Kane looked out over the settlement together. There was danger in the galaxy, yes, and challenges yet unseen, but there was also hope. And hope, she realized, was a force even stronger than fear. The next morning, Zyra woke to the sound of wind howling across the desert plains. Korath's twin suns had barely risen, casting a pale orange glow over the settlement, yet the air was already dry and sharp. She stretched, feeling muscles sore from the day before. Human life, she realized, demanded not only intellect but physical endurance. Kane, already up and moving among the storage huts, looked over at her with a grin. "Good morning," he said. "Hope you slept well. Today, we check out some trade routes. You'll learn how humans handle supply runs in rough territory." She had spent the last 2 days absorbing human ways, and though her alien instincts often guided her toward caution, she was learning to trust Kane's judgment. The journey began across jagged plains, where sandstorms could rise without warning and shadows hid dangers both natural and sentient. Kane piloted the ship carefully, his hands steady on the controls. Zyra studied him, noting the subtle adjustments, the anticipation in his eyes. Humans, she realized, had a remarkable ability to adapt to unpredictable situations. They could make decisions under pressure that even advanced civilizations sometimes struggled with. Halfway to the trading post, Kane slowed the ship. "We're entering a canyon, narrow paths, rocky terrain. Pirates and scavengers like these areas, stay alert." The canyon was narrower than she expected. Jagged cliffs rose on either side, their surfaces jagged and sharp. The wind howled through the gaps, carrying sand that stung her face despite the protective visor of her robe. Kane guided the ship slowly, pausing to let unstable rocks settle. Zyra assisted, scanning for weak points and alerting him to potential hazards. Their teamwork felt seamless, a merging of human instinct and Soralian precision. Suddenly, a shadow flickered along the canyon wall. Kane's eyes narrowed. "Ambush," he muttered. "Get ready." Kane had already trained her in basic defense measures, simple but effective techniques humans relied on when technology and strategy were more important than brute strength. She adjusted her stance, listening to Kane's calm voice as he guided their response. From the rocks above, figures emerged, pirates armed and ready. Their ships hovered dangerously close, weapons aimed at the small human craft. Kane did not hesitate. "Hold tight, we'll outsmart them." He pressed buttons, activated small thrusters, and even used the canyon walls to create controlled turbulence that forced the pirates' ships off balance. Zyra's eyes widened in astonishment. Humans were not as technologically advanced as the Soralians, but Kane's creativity and courage turned limitations into advantages. She assisted by predicting the pirates' movements, her analytical mind spotting patterns that Kane then used in his maneuvers. Together, they moved like a single unit, blending her intelligence with his improvisation. Within minutes, the pirates were forced to retreat, their ships scraping the canyon walls as they fled. Breathing heavily, Zyra finally allowed herself a small smile. "Humans, you are remarkable," she said. "I underestimated your ingenuity." Danger was still present in the galaxy, but now she realized that with humans like Kane by her side, survival was possible, and even clever, elegant victory could be achieved without surrendering to fear. When they arrived at the trading post, Zyra was greeted with cautious curiosity. The humans and aliens there had heard rumors of her, but the story of Kane's skill in navigating the canyon seemed to give them confidence in her presence. They listened attentively as Zyra demonstrated how her species managed resource allocation and energy conservation. The humans asked questions, eager to learn and adapt. Kane watched her, pride evident in his expression, though he did not say much. He had always believed in giving people space to shine, to gain respect through their actions rather than his own reputation. Zyra began to understand that this was another aspect of human strength, humility combined with leadership. Kane's quiet guidance allowed others to recognize value without feeling threatened, a subtlety many civilizations overlooked. After the trading post expedition, Kane and Zyra returned to the settlement. As they walked through the desert plains, Zyra felt the weight of fatigue but also a sense of exhilaration. Humans, she realized, thrived in conditions where others struggled. They adapted, they observed, and they acted decisively. Kane had not only protected her but had taught her to trust human problem-solving in high-stakes situations. That night, around a fire in the settlement square, Zyra listened to humans recount stories of survival, exploration, and ingenuity. Their tales were simple, often humorous, but beneath the surface was an enduring resilience that impressed her deeply. Kane joined the circle, adding anecdotes of his travels, but always letting others speak first. Zyra began to see the strength of human culture, a combination of courage, empathy, and intelligence that could overcome threats without relying solely on overwhelming power. She spoke carefully, sharing her insights about diplomacy and resource management. The humans listened attentively, some nodding, others asking questions. Zyra realized that respect could be earned through contribution, and humans, unlike the elites she had encountered elsewhere, were willing to grant it freely. The calm night, however, could not erase the dangers lurking nearby. Zyra had noticed signs, traces of advanced scouting ships, distant signals that suggested someone was tracking them. Kane, ever vigilant, remained aware of every movement, scanning the horizon even as the fire flickered. "They'll come sooner or later," he said quietly. "You need to be ready." She had survived ambushes before, but now she saw how humans combined caution, strategy, and ingenuity to create a defense that was adaptable and effective. She trained alongside Kane, learning not only defensive maneuvers but also improvisation, using terrain, timing, and psychological insight to outsmart potential attackers. Her skills complemented his, and together they formed a unit stronger than the sum of their parts. The next day, they began preparations for what Kane called preemptive measures. Zyra helped design subtle barriers, traps, and early warning systems using materials found locally. The humans followed her instructions carefully, impressed by her alien knowledge and its practical application. Zyra felt a growing sense of purpose. For the first time, she was not just surviving, she was contributing meaningfully, respected for her mind and her courage. As the week progressed, Zyra and Kane's partnership deepened. He shared stories of human exploration, their failures and small victories. She shared Surrealian history, diplomacy techniques, and survival strategies. They debated, laughed, and planned, forming a rhythm that blended alien intelligence with human ingenuity. Zyra felt a rare sense of belonging. She had expected rejection everywhere, but with Kane and these humans, she discovered respect, collaboration, and trust. One evening, a scout returned from the outskirts with urgent news. A group of mercenaries, likely hired by factions who had heard of Zyra's presence, was approaching. Kane's eyes darkened, but he did not panic. He explained the plan calmly. They would use their knowledge of terrain, improvised defenses, and coordinated strategies to repel any attack without unnecessary risk to the settlement. Zyra observed, learning how humans handled imminent danger, not with fear but with careful, creative planning. The next day, as the mercenaries drew near, Kane positioned Zyra and the settlement's defenders strategically. She marveled at the efficiency of his commands, the adaptability of the humans, and the way they executed plans with precision. She realized that humans could think on their feet, improvise, and remain steadfast even when the odds seemed impossible. And yet, there was also kindness in their actions. They fought not to dominate or destroy, but to protect, to preserve life while securing victory. When the mercenaries arrived, they were met with clever traps, evasive maneuvers, and unexpected resistance. Kane and Zyra coordinated the defense, their combined intelligence and foresight turning what could have been a disaster into a calculated counter. By the end of the confrontation, the mercenaries retreated, frustrated and defeated. Zyra stood beside Kane, her admiration for humans growing with every moment. She had come to this galaxy seeking refuge, expecting fear, indifference, and rejection. Instead, she found courage, ingenuity, and honor in the unlikeliest of allies. Cain had shown her that humans, despite their flaws, possessed qualities that could rival the most advanced civilizations. He had treated her with dignity, respected her knowledge, and trusted her abilities. And through this partnership, Zyra realized that humans could not only survive, they could inspire loyalty, respect, and even awe. That night, as the desert sky stretched wide above them, Zyra felt a quiet pride. She had faced rejection countless times, yet here, with Cain and the humans who had embraced her presence, she was learning a new definition of strength. It was not merely power or status, but courage, wisdom, adaptability, and respect. Humanity, she realized, had a depth that many underestimated, and in this harsh galaxy, such qualities could become legendary. The morning light spilled across the settlement, casting long shadows over the small domes and gardens. Zyra stood outside one of the structures, breathing the dry desert air, feeling the warmth of the twin suns on her skin. The events of the past week had been exhausting, but for the first time since leaving Soralia, she felt a sense of belonging. The humans around her had come to respect her knowledge and skills, and she had begun to appreciate the ways they survived, adapted, and thrived in harsh conditions. Cain approached, carrying a small device that looked like a combination of tools and sensors. "Morning," he said, smiling faintly. "Ready for today? We've got work to do before the next supply run." The new irrigation setup is running smoothly, and the energy storage improvements are holding up well. But I think you've improved our efficiency significantly. People notice. Zyra pointed out small improvements, subtle adjustments that could make daily life easier and safer. Cain listened attentively, asking questions but leaving the final decisions to Zyra. The respect he showed her was unlike anything she had encountered elsewhere in the galaxy. By midday, Zyra was invited to meet with the Settlement Council. Humans and a few aliens formed the council, and they had been monitoring her progress with interest. Cain had spoken highly of her, but Zyra knew that words alone were not enough. Actions mattered. She presented her suggestions for expanding water storage, optimizing food distribution, and strengthening defenses. The council listened intently, asking questions and taking notes. Her knowledge of interstellar resource management impressed them, but what impressed them even more was her willingness to teach rather than command. As the meeting concluded, one of the council members, a middle-aged human named Laura, spoke up. "Zyra, we've been through a lot here and many outsiders come and go, but you've shown wisdom, patience, and courage. You've earned our trust and respect. We want you to stay not as a guest, but as a valued member of this community." Cain watched her quietly, a faint smile on his face, and Zyra realized that it was not just the humans who had changed her perspective. It was him. He had treated her with dignity, allowed her to shine, and protected her when danger lurked nearby. The afternoon passed with practical work. Zyra helped the humans reinforce the settlement's perimeter, incorporating subtle traps and warning systems to detect intruders. Cain demonstrated tactical positions and escape routes, emphasizing adaptability and quick thinking. Zyra found herself impressed once more by human ingenuity. Their ability to improvise, observe, and act under pressure was extraordinary. They were far from invincible, but their courage and creativity made them formidable. As the sun began to lower, casting golden light across the desert, Cain took Zyra aside. "I need to be honest," he said. "Word spreads faster than we think. Other factions, mercenaries, rival human groups, even alien traders know you're here. Some will see you as a threat, others as an opportunity. We need to prepare for that." Zyra taught them subtle strategies she had learned from her people, ways to anticipate enemy behavior, to use terrain advantageously, and to coordinate defenses with precision. Humans absorbed her teachings eagerly, adapting them to their environment. Zyra marveled at how quickly they learned, how willing they were to combine her methods with their own instincts. One evening, as the desert winds whipped through the settlement, Zyra walked alone outside the walls. She looked at the stars, familiar constellations that reminded her of Soralia, and thought of the long journey that had brought her here. She had faced rejection, fear, and loneliness, yet she had found a place where she was respected, where her abilities were valued, and where kindness was not conditional. Cain approached quietly, carrying a small lantern. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said softly. Zyra nodded. "Yes, the stars, they remind me of home, but also of possibilities. I never imagined I could feel accepted again. I see that now. Your species, humans, you are not perfect, but you have qualities that even the most advanced civilizations lack. You are resilient, inventive, and honorable." A fleet of ships had been detected, moving through the desert at high speed. The symbols and patterns on the ships marked them as mercenaries hired by warlords from neighboring systems, groups who had heard of Zyra's presence and saw her as a prize or a threat. Kane did not panic, but his expression was serious. "They're coming for you," he said, "and they won't be easy to deal with. But we'll be ready." Zyra provided insight into enemy tactics, predicting likely maneuvers and weaknesses. Kane led the human teams, assigning positions, improvising traps, and preparing contingency plans. Zyra observed in awe as humans moved with precision, balancing creativity and discipline, courage and calculation. When the mercenary fleet finally appeared on the horizon, their ships glinting in the harsh sunlight, Zyra felt a calm determination. Kane signaled the defenders, and the humans executed their plans with skill and courage. Traps slowed the enemy, strategic maneuvers divided them, and clever use of terrain gave the settlement an advantage despite being outnumbered. Zyra assisted with communication and observation, providing intelligence that allowed humans to anticipate attacks and respond effectively. The battle was intense but brief. The mercenaries, unprepared for such coordinated resistance and clever tactics, were forced to retreat. Humans celebrated quietly, checking on each other and repairing minor damages. Zyra stood beside Kane, impressed and grateful. She had expected humans to be physically limited compared to other species, but their courage, intelligence, and adaptability had turned the tide. As night fell, the settlement gathered around a fire. Humans and Zyra shared stories of the day's events, laughing, analyzing, and celebrating their victory. Kane leaned against a nearby wall, watching Zyra quietly. She felt a sense of peace, of acceptance, and of pride. She had come to this galaxy seeking refuge, expecting rejection, and instead had found respect, collaboration, and courage. Zyra realized that her view of humanity had changed completely. Humans were not just survivors. They were capable of greatness through ingenuity, bravery, and honor. Kane had shown her that treating others with respect and trust could inspire loyalty and courage beyond expectation. In turn, she had shared her knowledge and insights, helping humans strengthen their settlement and survive threats that might have overwhelmed them alone. For the first time since leaving Soralia, Zyra allowed herself to feel at home. She had been rejected countless times, yet here, she was treated not as a burden or a curiosity, but as a valued member of a community. And Kane, the human who had first extended a hand of kindness, had shown her that humans, even with their imperfections, could be noble, resourceful, and honorable in ways that mattered more than power or technology. The night stretched on, quiet except for the wind and the distant stars. Zyra reflected on her journey, the rejections, the loneliness, the fear, and she realized that each experience had prepared her for this moment. She had found allies who could think, act, and care in ways that transcended species differences. And she understood now that humans, when trusted and respected, could achieve remarkable feats through courage, intelligence, and collaboration. As she looked over the settlement, lit softly by lanterns and fires, Zyra felt a sense of hope stronger than any fear. Danger would come again, she knew that, but she also knew that together with humans like Kane, she could face it. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, but for the first time she felt that she had a place in it. The dawn sky over the desert settlement was a pale orange, the twin suns climbing slowly over the horizon. Zyra stood on a ridge overlooking the domes, her silver hair catching the light. She felt the tension in the air before she heard it, the distant hum of engines, faster and louder than any local transport. Kane appeared beside her, calm but alert, scanning the horizon through his optical visor. "They're coming," he said quietly. "Not just scouts this time, a fleet, bigger than we've faced before." She had survived ambushes, exile, and betrayal, and she had learned that courage, intelligence, and careful planning could turn impossible situations into victories. Kane had trained her, guided her, and trusted her abilities. Together, they had prepared the settlement for just such a moment. The fleet approached swiftly, ships glinting in the desert sun. Zyra recognized the patterns, mercenaries hired by distant warlords, using tactics designed to overwhelm unprepared settlements. Kane's hand rested on the control panel of a small hovercraft, signaling defenders and coordinating communications. "We can do this," he said simply. "Trust your instincts, trust the humans." Humans took positions along the perimeter, readying traps and improvised weapons. They moved with precision, honed by previous practice and Zyra's strategic guidance. She watched, impressed, as people she had only met days ago acted with calm efficiency, trusting each other, trusting her, and trusting Kane. Zyra stepped forward to assist in the observation post, scanning the horizon. She had suggested placing reflective sensors on the dunes, creating false targets to mislead enemy scanners. Kane had implemented the ideas quickly, showing how human adaptability could turn alien strategies into practical defense. As the fleet drew closer, the enemy seemed confused by the shifting patterns, unable to predict the defenders' actions. When the first ships fired, Kane guided the defenders with calm precision. Humans moved with speed and intelligence, using terrain to their advantage. Traps slowed the advancing ships, forcing some to crash into the dunes. Zyra's knowledge of alien tactics allowed them to anticipate maneuvers and counter effectively. Every time a ship tried to flank the settlement, humans adjusted, coordinated, and countered. Kane's leadership was quiet but firm, giving space for others to act while maintaining overall strategy. Zyra's heart swelled with admiration. Humans were not merely reactive, they were innovative, brave, and clever under pressure. They adapted, improvised, and collaborated in ways that even advanced alien civilizations often overlooked. Here in the harsh desert, she witnessed human potential at its fullest. The battle intensified. Enemy ships began dropping small strike teams onto the dunes, attempting to infiltrate the settlement. Kane directed human defenders to intercept, while Zyra provided tactical advice. They created choke points, used elevated positions, and coordinated ambushes that exploited both terrain and psychology. Zyra marveled at the humans' instinctive timing, their ability to remain calm under fire, and their willingness to risk themselves to protect others. At one point, a strike team reached the outer wall. Kane signaled Zyra. Using a combination of Cerealian strategy and human improvisation, they trapped the intruders in a narrow corridor lined with camouflaged nets and sensors. Zyra guided the defenders, giving instructions that combined logic, timing, and subtle deception. The intruders were captured without serious injury, a testament to human ingenuity and restraint. Hours passed, the battle ebbing and flowing across the dunes. Zyra coordinated communications, relaying information between observation points and defenders. Kane moved among the teams, encouraging, advising, and correcting as needed. The humans trusted his judgment, but they also trusted Zyra's intelligence, adapting quickly to her suggestions. Together, they were a force far greater than their numbers would suggest. Finally, the enemy fleet began to falter. Confused by the clever defenses and coordinated resistance, the warlords' mercenaries retreated, some damaged, some forced to abandon their ships. The settlement remained intact, its people safe, and Zyra stood alongside Kane, feeling a sense of profound satisfaction. They had faced a threat far greater than themselves and had prevailed through courage, ingenuity, and teamwork. The humans cheered quietly, checking on each other, repairing minor damage, and celebrating their success. Zyra looked at the people she had come to respect and admire. They were strong not through brute force or advanced technology alone, but through intelligence, cooperation, and moral courage. Kane approached, his eyes softening. "You did well," he said, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Not just in helping us prepare, but in showing us what's possible when we work together." "No, we did this together. Humans are remarkable. I underestimated your resilience, your creativity, your courage. I see now that humans are capable of greatness in ways few others recognize." Humans and a few aliens had come together to formally recognize Zyra's contributions. Kane stood by her side, quiet and supportive, as Zyra addressed the community. She spoke of her experiences, the rejection she had faced across the galaxy, and the hope she had found among humans. She emphasized that intelligence, courage, and respect for others were qualities that transcended species. The humans listened, nodding, some visibly moved. When she finished, Laura, the council leader, spoke. "Zyra, you have shown wisdom, bravery, and generosity. You have helped our settlement survive against impossible odds. We recognize you not only as a guest, but as a valued member of our community." She had been rejected so many times, dismissed or feared by others. Here in this small settlement, she was treated with dignity, respect, and recognition. She looked at Kane, who smiled faintly as if to say, "You belong here," and she knew he was right. Over the following days, Zyra helped the settlement recover and rebuild. She taught advanced techniques for energy management, resource allocation, and strategic planning. Humans adapted her methods to their environment, improving their defenses and productivity. Zyra felt a sense of purpose she had not known since leaving Soralia. She had found not only safety but respect, collaboration, and friendship. Word of her presence spread across nearby systems, but rather than fear, she inspired admiration. Other communities reached out for guidance, eager to learn from the alliance between Zyra and the humans of the desert settlement. Kane continued his role quietly, facilitating connections and encouraging cooperation without seeking attention or praise. Zyra realized that this combination of human humility, courage, and ingenuity made them exceptional. One evening, as the twin suns set in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Zyra and Kane walked along the settlement's perimeter. The air was still warm, and the desert stretched endlessly before them. Zyra looked at the human settlements below, feeling a deep sense of pride and belonging. "You have shown me so much," she said softly. "Not just protection, but respect, intelligence, and honor. I never thought I would find a place like this. You've reminded us how valuable they can be. And I think you've taught the humans here something important, too, about courage, strategy, and seeing value where others only see risk." With humans like Kane and the community that had welcomed her, she felt prepared, capable, and respected. Weeks later, the settlement thrived. Resources were managed efficiently, defenses were strengthened, and humans and aliens worked together under Zyra's guidance. Kane's quiet leadership continued, always supporting others, always prioritizing collaboration over domination. Zyra had never expected to find such a partnership, such acceptance, or such respect. She had come to the galaxy seeking refuge, and she had found more than safety. She had found a place where her mind and her courage mattered, where she could contribute, and where humans had proven themselves honorable, inventive, and courageous beyond measure. On the night before she would formally take her place as a council advisor and respected member of the settlement, Zyra sat outside Kane's small ship looking at the stars. Memories of rejection across countless worlds came to her, but instead of pain, she felt gratitude and resolve. She had endured, learned, and grown. She had faced prejudice, fear, and danger, and had survived through courage, wisdom, and collaboration. Kane approached, carrying 2 cups of warm tea. He handed one to her, smiling faintly. "For old habits," he said, "and new beginnings. You treated me with dignity when all others rejected me. You taught me to trust, to hope, and to believe in humans." She had seen the best of humanity, not through domination, not through fear, but through ingenuity, honor, and the willingness to see value in others. As the stars twinkled above, Zyra realized that she was home. And Kane, standing quietly beside her, had shown that humans could inspire loyalty, courage, and admiration in ways the galaxy rarely recognized. Together, they had survived, thrived, and proven that hope, intelligence, and honor could triumph against even the greatest odds. For the first time since her journey began, Zyra smiled freely, her heart light. The world was wide, full of challenges and uncertainty, but she knew she had a place, a family, and allies who saw her worth. She had been rejected countless times, but now one human had treated her like royalty, and through that single act of trust and respect, she had discovered the best of humanity.